Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay in the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Hey guys, it's Jeff here. Just wanted to give you a quick little update before you actually start listening to the show. We recorded this on Wednesday night, November 30th. And at that time, Scott Frost had not yet addressed the Oregon situation. Well, it turns out that the next day, literally just a couple hours after we released the show, Scott Frost came out and in an impromptu press conference at UCF said he is happy right here at UCF. He's not going to leave for Oregon, so effectively taking himself out of consideration for the Oregon coaching job. So obviously, we do touch upon that in this show, but it was before all that went down, so I just wanted to give you a heads up. And here's the quote from Scott Frost, and this is courtesy of Brandon Hellwig at UCFsports.com. Quote, "I'm not a candidate for Oregon. I'm happy right here. This is where I want to be. I started something here. I feel like we've taken a lot of steps to getting this program at the top of this league. I want to see that through here. I'm really happy here, and I have no intention of leaving here anytime soon." So take of that what you will. So at least for the time being, it sounds like Scott Frost is going to be staying at UCF. So that doesn't mean you should just delete the show outright. We talk about a lot of stuff, especially having to do with the bowl projections and Willie Taggart maybe going to Oregon. But at least the Scott Frost aspect of the Oregon head coaching search story seems to have been put to bed, at least for the moment. All right, let's get to the show. What's up, Knight fans? Hope you're still full from Thanksgiving. Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Along with Eric Lopez, I'm Jeff Sharon. Thank you so much for joining us as we head into the month of December. Eric, how quickly has 2016 gone, man?
In some cases too fast, because that means the football season's done.
Yeah.
That's why.
I know. We're already talking about bowl games. This coming weekend is the conference championship weekend. I mean, it makes me sad, because this is, we had rivalry weekend last week, which we'll talk about on the podcast. UCF going down to USF, and a couple things to talk about with that game. We'll also talk about some bowl projections for UCF and where the Knights might go in their bowl games. We'll talk about men's and women's basketball. We'll talk about the Oregon job opening up and what that might mean for Scott Frost as well. So lots to talk about this on the show, on this edition of the show today. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at UCF_Banneret. We're also on Facebook at Black and Gold Banneret. You can subscribe to the podcast via iTunes, via Google Play, and also via SoundCloud, which is where we host our podcast as well. And what else do we have? We also don't forget to subscribe to our site for a newsletter where Eric and I, once in a while, will write something interesting that you might be interested in finding out. Like, Eric, your television ratings from the basketball weekend, which went up last weekend. And we're actually recording this right after the UCF defeating Stetson in a matchup of some old rivals on the basketball floor. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But we start with football, and UCF wrapping up the regular season at 6-6. But losers of their last two, and it was going to be tough, wasn't it, Eric? Because you go down to USF. This is coming off of the loss to Tulsa. Tulsa, very good, second in the West at home. That was going to be a tough one no matter what. Then you go down to Tampa. First time they're playing for the trophy in the war on I-4. The Knights have already clinched a bowl game, but 48-31 the final in Tampa. And this was a tough one, Eric, because in the fourth quarter, it looked like things were starting to get interesting. The Knights were down, 41-31 with 2:50 to go. Or excuse me, let me skip back a little bit. Third quarter, Taj McGowan's touchdown run cut it to 31-24. And we're thinking, okay, this might be, now it's getting tight because USF was up 24-7 in the second quarter, but then things just kind of unraveled. So with 2:55 to go in the third quarter, Knights are down, Eric, 31-24, and they have the ball. And can't get anything going on offense. They have to punt the ball away at the 35, and USF gets the ball back. We go into the fourth, and Quentin Flowers, who by the way ended up being the they started running off some clock. UCF got the ball back, but then they have to punt again down 7 in the early in the fourth. Then there was a late. Then USF moves the ball down the field again. They miss a field goal off the upright, and we're thinking, okay, third time's the charm here. About 10 minutes to go in the game. Knights are down 7. And then Mackenzie Milton throws an interception it was on a first down play from the UCF 39. That was an absolute killer because it gave USF the short field right after they'd missed the field goal that would have put them up 2 scores. Next play, Quentin Flowers runs the ball in from 24 yards out for what basically was the game-ending touchdown. That made it 38-24. And then next possession, first play for UCF from their own 15, Milton throws another interception. So 2 consecutive throws result in interceptions for Mackenzie Milton. And that was pretty much it. From there, it was another touchdown there was a field goal for USF. They were up 41-24. That was pretty much it. This was a tough one, Eric, because I felt, watching this game, as I know you did, you were down there. The Knights had their chances in this game, didn't they?
They really did, actually, and it was a pretty interesting game. I think UCF definitely had some chance. They got off to a good start in the game with the opening drive with a touchdown to take the lead 7-0. USF kind of broke some plays off the edge with Marlon Mack, and then early in the third quarter with Quentin Flowers. But UCF hung in there, and I even go back to the second quarter where UCF had the ball. If you remember the sequence, they had the trick play for the touchdown, Jeff, to get it with, I believe it was 24-14 at the time.
It was 24-14 after the touchdown pass from Tristan Payton to Traquan Smith, a 72-yarder.
Well-designed play, and then they had the onside kick that they recovered, only to find out on the replay that they had a player out of bounds. So USF got the ball, but then USF fumbled the ball, and UCF got the ball back. They drove into USF territory, and Scott Frost decided to go for it on fourth down a couple times. And instead of kicking the field goal before the half, and they didn't convert on the last fourth down of that drive. Otherwise, I thought they could have gotten for the field goal and maybe cut it to 7. I was surprised with that.
That was a little bit too – that was the first time I thought all season that, okay, Scott Frost is being a little too aggressive here.
Maybe. But they were right there, and then, like you mentioned, UCF got it within 31-24. Really had the momentum there. I mean, I do know
ball 3 times down 7.
Yeah, and I know they had you. I know some of the people I was around, USF people, were kind of surprised. I think we're a little nervous. They weren't expecting that. Unfortunately, as you mentioned, Mackenzie Milton with the interception, that kind of was the backbreaker there a little bit.
Yeah.
And it happened.
Yeah.
And Scott Frost said that in the post game afterwards, that when you're playing at the situation that they're in, you have to take advantage of your breaks. You cannot give them opportunities if you expect to win, and that's what happened. So, I thought it was a pretty good game, actually. I look at it as someone who was there last year at Thanksgiving in that debacle, 44-3. I think it was a pretty positive step, and I think the positive is, look, I think you showed you could play with South Florida. This is their best team, arguably ever, in South Florida football. 10 wins for the first time in school history over there in Tampa. And I think the guys
still haven't won the division.
It stinks for them. And so I thought they hung in there. And it was something that Scott Frost said in the postgame, too, that was telling, a lot of these guys are tired. This team doesn't have a lot of depth. And like that defense in particular, guys on that defense, I thought they looked tired at times, didn't they, Jeff? I mean, you watched it on TV. I was there. Some missed tackles that you didn't see earlier in the year. I mean, this group is tired. They've left it all on the field. The lack of depth, I think, caught up with them a little bit. And so it is what it is. It was a good game. To me, it was a 10-point game margin. I don't know if you want to get it, how much you want to get into the last touchdown and nonsense that was going on there, but I thought it was a competitive 10-point game, and I think you got something to build on for next year. Obviously, Mackenzie Milton, I thought he played better than he has the last couple of weeks, but he's still making those mistakes, and I think certainly, I'm sure one of the focal points going into next season is going to be, he's got to improve on his mechanics, maybe put on some weight, some bulk up a little bit, get stronger, and, see what happens between now and, the start of next season for him.
I was a little disappointed at some of the UCF fans out there who, towards the end of the game, were throwing Scott Frost under the bus for complaining for leaving Milton in there. Say, why didn't we go to Justin Holman?
Well, they brought in Holman.
They brought him in, but by then it was too late, and they were thinking, just bring in the senior for a change of pace. And I'm like, don't you see what's been going on? I went back and I looked at the numbers for the season, and I know people are going to be like, oh, Jeff with his numbers again. Listen, the numbers don't lie. Okay, Mackenzie Milton this year has completed 58% of his passes. Justin Holman, in 6 games played, has completed 43. He's done most of his damage rushing. Justin Holman did. He's thrown 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. And my thought on that was, if Justin Holman was good enough to take the job away from Mackenzie Milton, he would have done it. But he didn't. That's why Justin Holman was on the bench. It wasn't a matter of, Frost is being loyal to his guy to a fault. It's because Justin Holman can't run this offense the way Mackenzie Milton can. Justin Holman, when he goes back to throw, he checks first and third and then winds up and fires. That you can't do that in this offense. You got to get the ball out quick. That's what Milton does, and he's just a square peg in a round hole. Now, for Justin's sake, I hope he does get a look. I mean, he's a senior, and I hope he does get a look from some NFL teams because, boy, he has all the measurables of a classic NFL pro-style quarterback, doesn't he? Big, strong arm. He can move around in the pocket, but that arm is a weapon of his. And I hope he gets a look. Maybe in the draft. I don't know if he's going to go to the combine or not, but whatnot. But with the way the system was working, it just wasn't going to happen. And put Mackenzie Milton in there and let him take his lumps. Boy, did he ever this season, right? So I'm fine with him sticking with Mackenzie Milton because that's the only way that this kid's going to get better. And next year, we're going to see the fruits of that labor, I believe. What do you think?
Well, there's a couple things there. Yes, obviously, yes. There's no real purpose to go into the senior quarterback and starting him when he's not going to be back next year. So you want to get the kid that's going to be back next year as many reps as you can. So I agree with all that. I think Milton should have been the start of the. I don't think that Holman should have been put back in as a starter or anything like that. I will bring up this. Yeah, but I will bring up a couple things. Why do you think he did put in Holman in that South Florida game there with about, 4 or 5 minutes to go, and it was 41-24. And I remember because I was down on the field, and I was standing next to our good friend, Brandon Helwig, UCSSports.com. Mm-hmm. And I as that drive was going on, he brought in Holman quickly. And boom, 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 they had that quick drive, and they quick passes and hit the touchdown. And I
against
told
USF's
him,
second team, of course.
But I told Brandon, all right, yep, that's your message board's about to blow up there.
Yeah.
Why bring him in there? Because I actually thought if you were going to bring in Holman in relief, that the time to do it was that Tulsa game in the second half at home on senior night when you needed a spark a little bit there. And he didn't do it then, and he defended him, the decision afterwards. So I was surprised that he brought him in at the end of that South Florida game for a couple drives. And he looked good in that first drive. And then the fans that are clamoring for Holman will conveniently forget that after that touchdown drive, he got pressured and sacked and, things like that. So, but I was surprised that he brought in Holman there at that point when you didn't bring him in against Tulsa or even in that game. So how do you rationale that decision process in bringing Holman in there at that point when you chose not to do that against Tulsa when he, the week earlier?
I would say two things. Number one, it's garbage time. Game is basically over. Number two, don't get Mackenzie Milton hurt. He'd been taking a beating throughout the game. Really, he's been taking a beating throughout the season. Enough is enough. Don't let and in a rivalry game, when you know that late in the game they're up 2-3 scores, they're going to start teeing off on your guy. I mean, why risk it at that point? Because he's going to be running around trying to make a play, and may potentially get himself killed. And Holman is smart enough not to do that. Now, that also may be an argument for maybe bringing Holman in earlier, but still, you stick with your guy.
Right. And my thing is, I'm not, like I said, I'm okay if he decides to bring him in for a spark. Now, and I agree with you, though. I wouldn't have started. Like, if you brought in Holman against Tulsa, for example, I would not have started him the following week. I would use him more as a relief.
No. Right.
Because he is a better right now down the field passer than Mackenzie Milton at this point. And so why not, when you're behind, you take a shot with Holman, who can at least go vertically deep and maybe try to get you back in the game with a quick score like he did in that one drive. I agree. Look, at the end of the day, I agree with you. I think people are overreacting to it, exaggerating it. I don't think that Justin Holman, it's funny how people quickly forget that they not watch Justin Holman last year or at the beginning of this year when he struggled. I mean, especially this year, he struggled really bad.
I mean, God bless him. He was just flat out bad at times this year. I mean,
correct.
There was no. I mean, remember back in the South Carolina State game, he was really struggling throwing the ball, and then Nick Patty came in for a little bit, and people were like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! What do we have here? Nick Patty moving the ball. Let's leave him in there." And then all of a sudden, everyone has a really short memory, don't they?
They do. So I don't have a problem with bringing up why not bring him in for a spark, because he is a better vertical passer right now than McKenzie. And then I will say that there's something to be said. I remember, Bobby Bowden used to do this with Charlie Ward in his the year before his Heisman Trophy in '92, where when Charlie would struggle, he would pull him from the game for a series or two just to get a different look. George O'Leary used to do that at Georgia Tech, actually.
Yeah.
There are
Joe
coaches
Hamilton and George Gotze.
George Gotze, absolutely, where you take him out for a series or two, you put in the backup for a series or two, and then you bring him back in. So I would not even have had a problem with that if you decided to do that. And again, I go back to the Tulsa game more than just because I felt like senior night. I thought they needed a spark in that second half when that game started getting away. And he shows, obviously he disagreed. It's not a big deal. But so I wouldn't have a problem with that if you want to take the kid out for a series or two and say, hey, look, take a look and stuff. But that being said, I think the difference is, as I bring up the Bowden, the reason why the Bowden example is a bad one is Danny Cannell, as we found out later, obviously was a tremendous quarterback himself. And with respect to Justin Holman, he's not the guy. He, like you said, he had if he was lighting the world on fire either at practice or before the season, they wouldn't be in this predicament. Right. And remember, and people forget, he had his chance in the East Carolina game. Remember when Mackenzie Milton was hurt, it turns out, and he didn't start. He got hurt in the FIU game, and he didn't play against East Carolina, and Holman started that game. I think if Holman would have played well, for example, and done some great things, then maybe we're having a different conversation. But he struggled in that game. So it's not like Justin didn't have a chance. It's not like Scott Frost didn't, completely took him out of the picture. There were opportunities there, and he just wasn't good enough. And he's not going to be back on this team next year because he's graduating. So it's not like if he was a sophomore and he was coming back, then I might hear the argument better because, those guys are going to compete against each other anyway next year. Mm-hmm. But he's not coming back. So how does that help your program next season. That part I don't agree with. I don't understand the rationale there as well, as far as people are clamoring for the change there.
Yeah. Well, nonetheless, the Knights finished the season at 500, which let's stand back for just a hot second here and admire the fact that UCF got to 500 the year after going 0-12, which, again, I've gone back and I've looked at the history. Last team in FBS to go to a bowl game the year after going winless was UCF in 2005 after O'Leary's first year. And the fact that Scott Frost was able to get these kids to buy in as quickly as he did is really a testament to the job that he was able to do here. And so, you got to hand it to him. You got to hand it to him and the entire coaching staff for getting this team to this point. I mean, I went back and I looked at it, man. There's a lot of teams that go winless, and the next year they win maybe 1 or 2 games. Things really implode after a winless season. But the Knights were able to rally around the new coach, and now they're heading to a bowl game. Speaking of which, we don't know which bowl game UCF is going to just yet. On the UCF schedule right now on their website, it says Sunday, December 4th, bowl announcement. Don't know what time. Don't know where we're going. But if you look at the bowl projections around, there are a couple of interesting options. I'm going to pull up some of them here, but really the bowl projections, that, depending on where you look, maybe it's CBS, Jerry Palm, or Stuart Mandel over at Fox, or the guys over at ESPN, Brett McMurphy, and I forget who else is. Schleybaugh.
Bart Salama.
Yeah, Schleybaugh's doing that as well. Depending on where you look, UCF is likely going to one of 2 places. Either one, the AutoNation Cure Bowl, which is here in Orlando on Saturday, December the 17th, televised on CBS Sports Network, by the way, or the Miami Beach Bowl, which is scheduled for Monday, December the 19th on ESPN at 2:30 p.m. Now, a note on the Cure Bowl, it would be the American versus the Sun Belt. Knights would likely be playing somebody like South Alabama or Louisiana Lafayette. By the way, both of those teams under 500 heading into this weekend. Or the Miami Beach Bowl against a MAC team. So that could be somebody like Toledo or Ohio. I've seen actually projected out there. But let me ask you this, Eric Lopez. What do you think is the best option? Where do you think the Knights are going to go?
I don't know whether, that's a loaded question. I don't know what the best option are. It depends on what your preferences are.
Well, let me ask you this. If you're Scott Frost, where do you want to go?
If I'm Scott Frost, I would have loved to have gone to the Bahamas, right? Just hang out in the Bahamas. Now, that's not going to happen. It's already been filled.
Let me make the case for Miami Beach if you're Scott Frost.
Sure.
A lot of recruits down in South Florida.
Yeah.
And you're going to be on ESPN, all right? Even though it's 2:30 p.m. on a Monday, you're going to be on ESPN. People are going to watch that game. You can bring your recruits in from, Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. Bring them on down to Marlins Park and say, hey, come watch our team play. You're going to play against a mediocre MAC team. You can really unload the offense. You're going to have an extra 3 weeks of practice leading up to that game. Just let it fly and go to where you were. I don't see where the Cure Bowl and God bless, it's run by Alan Gooch, who obviously former UCF coach, former UCF player, has been just about everywhere. It's on CBS Sports Network. It's going to be against a mediocre Sun Belt team, and you're already at home. I think that if you're the coaching staff, the upside is the Miami Beach Bowl. If you're a fan, however, you want the Cure Bowl because that means you can go down to the Citrus Bowl and see the game, no?
I think the coaching staff will be happy either way. Because you know why they're going to be happy either way? Because they get the 15 practices, honestly.
That's true.
That's right. So it doesn't matter, everything else is what it is. The big thing is they're going to get extra practices out of this because you know what? You can easily bring recruits into Orlando because at some point you're going to, no matter, you can talk about the South Florida recruits. At some point you got to bring them up here anyway and show the campus. So you can you can do whatever with all that things. I think your best argument why, there's back and forth on this. It's going to be, let's just clear this up. It's going to be either Miami Beach or the Cure Bowl. I'd be shocked if it was any other bowl game.
I agree.
So the advantages of the Cure Bowl is obviously it's in your backyard, which, as you know this, having worked there, and you were part of the traveling party for the St. Pete Bowl back in 2009.
Yep.
There is a cost factor here from a university standpoint, from a traveling standpoint, that does take into effect, where that would not be a factor if the game is here in Orlando as opposed to Miami Beach.
Yeah, and some of these lesser bowls, they don't foot the bill for you to drive or fly down there.
Can you go into, because you know this, you were part of the party back in the 2009 St. Pete Bowl when UCF played Rutgers, and we'll get into St. Pete later. Apparently they're in the headlines. UCF fans not as big deal there, but and you were the host of the coverage there leading up to that game. I believe it was Bowl by the Bay, right? So tell the audience, because I think this is a very interesting perspective that doesn't get brought up. We'll get to the fan side of it. But from a university standpoint, there is a cost factor from a bowl game standpoint. For example, I think UCF's relieved that they're not going to the Bahamas, because that would have been getting kids to get their passports and traveling and flights. It's a lot of stuff. Whereas, I think at least they're going to be in the state. They'll be all right. But there is a cost difference between Orlando and traveling to a bowl game, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you could just sleep in your own bed. I mean, you don't. They might let them, go to the hotel and be a part of that. But the travel costs are another situation entirely, because when we went to St. Pete, there was the big bus convoy, and you had to sort of bus everything around. I think that if UCF did go to the Cure Bowl, they would just end up staying in a hotel in order to let the kids be a part of like the whole bowl experience. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I would imagine that that's what they would do. I will say this, we talked about bowl payouts. I was just quickly searching out college bowl game payouts, and the latest I could find was 2015. The per team payout for the St. Pete Bowl, this is as of 2015, was $537,500. That's not a lot, because in fact it will only, in some cases it won't even cover, depending on how far you're traveling from, it won't even cover your entire stay when you factor in the hotel rooms, the gifts that the kids get, the putting on the events and all that kind of stuff. The Miami Beach Bowl pays out $1 million per team. Now, that's worth considering. The Cure Bowl paid out in 2015. This is interesting. 2015, it paid out $1.35 million per team. So that's something that UCF's administration is going to have to consider. Danny White and
so you could get more
Strickland.
money so you could get more money staying in town.
As of 2015,
right.
Yeah, it may have changed this year, but as of the 2015 bowl payments, yeah, I was actually surprised to see that the Cure Bowl does pay more than Miami Beach and St. Pete.
Right, and the other factor is UCF's responsible for selling bowl tickets.
Yes, both teams are. So
correct. So in other words, let's be honest. If you're CF, it's going to be a lot easier to sell your fan base. Hey, go out to what was formerly known as the Citrus Bowl. It's now Camping World. When they want to pay me the sponsorship, I'll be more than happy to call it.
I know.
But let's be honest, it's going to be a lot easier on a Saturday, 5:30 kick.
Yep.
You can use the nostalgic storyline, right? I mean, it would have been basically 10 years since UCF had played the last game there at that stadium. So it's an easy way to, I can see it now, and the people involved, the UCF video department will pump up some video highlights of UCF playing back in the day.
Dust off the old Betamax tapes and
man. So it's an easier ticket sell, and you could probably sell your allotment very easily and then some, and maybe even come out on the plus side. Whereas if you go to Miami Beach, how are you going to get UCF fans to come down to Miami Beach to go to a game on a Monday afternoon at what time the kickoff?
2:30 p.m. Eastern.
The Monday before Christmas.
Right.
Before Christmas, which let's be honest, a lot of people are going to take the time off the following weekend. So from a work standpoint, it's going to be hard for people to get out of work and go down to Miami Beach a week before Christmas. So there's some logistics there that would not favor UCF from a business standpoint. However, in fairness to your point, Miami Beach game will be on that 4-letter network, whereas the other one will be on CBS Sports Network. And with respect, and we have friends that work at CBS Sports Network. We had Dave Ryan on last week, and I watch that channel a lot and enjoy their coverage. But they're
Dave
not
might
the
be in line
4-letter
to do
network.
that game too, by the way.
He is.
Yeah.
I believe he would do it, so we're cool with that. I believe so. I think Jenny Dell will do sideline. That's the only, and Corey Chavis will be the analyst. Yeah. But it's not the 4-letter network, right? And from an exposure standpoint, people flip to that channel and will watch that game. They will watch that game. So it's also worth noting, Jeff, that ESPN and the American Conference co-own that Miami Beach Bowl. So they have a vested interest. I don't know if people are really that aware of it. A lot of these bowl games are in partnership with ESPN and certain conferences.
And a lot of them are owned outright by ESPN.
Correct.
The St. Pete Bowl is actually owned by ESPN. It's part of ESPN events. And there are several others that are also, I think, the New Orleans Bowl. I'll have to go back and look at which ones are. But ESPN, people forget that this is basically – the reason why these 40 bowl games exist is to give the ESPN family of networks programming.
Right. And that's the thing. Exactly. You nailed it 100%. Where these fans are complaining about, why is this game at 2:30 Monday? You know why? Because ESPN wants that game on that Monday in the afternoon right before the pregame for Monday Night Football. It's all about programming. And you're absolutely right. They don't really care about the attendance. Now, the American does for that bowl game.
Right.
But I mean, sure, you want some ticket sales, but in reality, it's about the television, putting the game on for television and trying to make it as attractive. So if you're ESPN and you're the American Conference and you're watching the Miami Beach Bowl, which one do you think is going to look better? If UCF is playing in that game with fans from the state of Florida or Tulsa, for example? What are the odds?
Yeah, especially if who you're playing against. If you're playing against Toledo or somebody like that.
Right. So that's the challenge with all this stuff behind the scenes. And who knows what's going to happen? There's always back-channeling negotiations going on. You mentioned one of the reasons is ESPN owns a lot of these bowl games. So in reality, they can do whatever they want. I've been told from sources, not UCF related, not conference related. Let's just clear that up. Don't send any angry emails and texts.
Everyone calm down.
But I've been told, for example, that, for example, Houston wants to play in the Las Vegas Bowl to play Boise State because that's an attractive matchup. B, that game is on December 17th. They've got an interim coach right now with Todd Orlando. They only have 4 assistant coaches right now because the rest of the staff is in Austin. So they want to get their season done as quickly as possible and have an attractive game that's interesting to them. And, so we'll see if that happens or not. So just because I know a lot of people looked at the fact that the Bahamas Bowl filled their slots with non-American conference teams. And a lot of people are like, whoa, well, that's a sign that UCF's definitely now going to the Cure Bowl. No. Just because there's 7 slots for the American Conference right now in those 7 bowls doesn't mean that an American Conference team could, in theory, be flipped to another bowl game because there's a slot that opened in that bowl game because that bowl game's team, that the conference that was supposed to go there, didn't fill out, the requirements. They didn't have enough teams eligible. And right. I believe, I looked it up, the Las Vegas Bowl is one of those bowls that it looks like will have a slot open. And so that's what's going to happen with these things and it's why I don't do projections anymore because it's almost a losing battle. No, it really is. It's a losing. I feel sorry for my friend Brant Parsons. Does a heck of a job with the Orlando Sentinel. But he's got a losing battle because he's going to do these projections and the fans get on his case about why are you putting us there? Why are you doing this?
First
and then
of all, though Brant has control over that.
Right. And then they're going to give him a hard time on Sunday. Like, for example, if it happened,
got wrong. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right, like how is he supposed to know that Houston all of a sudden worked out a deal and they ended up in Las Vegas? Like nobody could predict that kind of stuff or if UCF ended up, let's say hypothetically UCF ended up somehow in Birmingham. How the heck did that happen? There's always back channels that are going on. So I would caution people about that. So keep that in mind. I see both sides to the story. I'm biased from the standpoint of, yes, I would prefer them to play in Orlando to help Alan Gooch out. Play one more time in that stadium. You and I have broadcasted games there, gone to a bunch of UCF games in that stadium. So I think it'd be cool.
It would be fun. For UCF people, it would be a lot of fun.
Correct. So I think it'd be great, and I think it would help that bowl game a lot. But on the other hand, I understand the other side of the coin, and I wouldn't be surprised if UCF ends up in Miami Beach as well. So it is what it is.
It should be noted, ESPN-owned bowl games. You ready for this? Here you go. Yeah. Armed Forces, Birmingham, Bahamas, Boca Raton, Camellia, Celebration, Idaho, Potato, Hawaii, Heart of Dallas, Las Vegas, New Mexico, St. Pete, and Texas. Not entirely owned by ESPN events is the Miami Beach Bowl.
Because the Americans involved in that.
Right. And obviously the Cure Bowl, which is put on separately. So
correct.
One other thing that is going to complicate things is what happens with Navy. Now, Navy won the West in the American. They're going to play for the conference championship this coming weekend against Temple. Temple in the AAC championship game for the second straight year. Navy ranked. And then, lest we forget, they've got one more game to play after the American Athletic Conference championship against Army the following week, which is a screwy little quirk in this. Because I remember when the Army-Navy game used to be the same day as the conference championship games. And then
correct. They moved it away to get more attention.
Yeah,
right.
They moved it back a week to give it more attention. But now it has complicated everything because Navy Navy might even be in line for a shot at one of the Access Bowls.
Correct.
If they win the conference, and obviously assuming that they beat Army. And there's a lot of dominoes that have yet to fall depending upon what Navy does because, like we said, they've got 2 more games left on the schedule.
And what's funny is this was brought up a year ago when Navy joined the American Conference. And they kind of scoffed at it.
This will never happen. We won't ever have to worry about that.
Correct.
Oops.
And guess what? Here we are. Navy's ranked 19th. And here's the thing that's got to be nerve-wracking. Navy jumped up to 19th in the latest poll of the college football playoff ranking. Western Michigan is 17th. There's not a big gap there. Who's to say?
Western Michigan's undefeated.
Correct. And I know I'm in the minority of this. I'll admit I'm a little biased, but I think the American Conference is a superior conference to the MAC. I think they have separated themselves from the MAC and the Mountain West. I think the league is tremendous from a football standpoint. Really has exceeded expectations. For people to forget, when the American Conference was created in 2013, I think everybody was under the belief that basketball would be the flagship sport for the league. And while basketball has done well, football has been really much better. 4 teams in the top 25 last year. You had UCF winning the Fiesta Bowl against Baylor in the first year as the representative. You had Houston last year representing in the Peach Bowl, beating Florida State. 4 teams in the top 25, as I mentioned last year. Finally, this weekend, you got 2 teams ranked in the top 25. I think they got the wrong second team in the top 25. I think Temple should be ranked in the top 25.
I'm with you on that, and we've talked about that before, yeah.
Sorry. So I think if Western Michigan loses, definitely if Western Michigan loses, I think there's a strong chance that the winner of the Temple-Navy game ends up in Arlington for the Cotton Bowl. And I would not be surprised if there's some people in that committee that think the Navy should be in anyway over Western Michigan, even if Western Michigan won, when you consider the fact that Navy has beaten Houston. They've won the American Conference, which is a stronger league, as I mentioned. I don't think that's going to happen. I think if Western Michigan wins, they will get the bid, especially undefeated. It's going to be tough to ignore. But if they win, I think there's a lot of bowl people that are rooting for Western Michigan to win.
Yeah, they're going to be playing against Ohio.
And they're a heavy favorite. But Ohio's hot. Yeah. Ohio's 1-6. They started the year 1-6, won their last 5 to win that division. Frank Solich, former Nebraska coach there.
That's right. He's been there for a long time now.
If Ohio pulls the upset, there's going to be a lot of nervous people in the bowl games, and they'll probably be rooting for Temple in that scenario to upset Navy because they're going to have it could be a very awkward situation because you're right. It affects a lot of
Yeah,
bowl game.
There's a lot of down ballot races, as they like to say, that are
Well, and
gonna
it's going to hurt. It could hurt.
On
Right.
Friday night.
It could hurt like the Cure Bowl, for example, because if Navy's involved and they decide to wait till after the Navy game, then the Cure Bowl may not know who's playing in that game until a week before the game.
Right.
And that's tough. So same thing with a lot of other bowl games. So I'm surprised that they have been so lazy about this, and he kind of blew it off last year, and it's kind of blown in their face. So I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of rooting for this to happen. I'm rooting for this to happen just because I just like to see this thing blow in their face.
I would be surprised if they don't have all those contingency plans maybe already worked out heading into this weekend. It's just that they're not telling us.
But what plan is that? So give me the scenario. If Western Michigan loses and Navy wins the American Conference, what's the scenario? What happens?
I think if Western Michigan loses and Navy wins, I think they do go to the Access Bowl. At least I think they should.
Do they wait till the Army game, or do they just announce it?
No, I think they'll announce it. They'll announce it probably before the Army game. I think they would be smart to announce it before the Army game.
So in other words, the Army game that will not affect the result of their. And I agree with you. I think that's what you have to do.
You're kind of in that respect. They're kind of between a rock and a hard place. They kind of have no choice but to announce it because they would look completely silly if they had to wait for this, and then all of a sudden Navy gets shuffled down if they lose to Army, which is probably won't happen, but.
Army's improved this year. They beat Temple this year. Don't
that's true. That's true. I have to take that. They're 6-5. They're an independent, by the way. But I don't think it's going to be like. There's an article that's right up right now that says if Navy wins the American, it reportedly would be a disaster for the bowl system. I don't think that's the headline. I don't necessarily think that's true. I just think
I think there's going to be some people that are going to say, no, we need them to play that Army game, which is hilarious. I do wonder.
I don't think
you just heard the headline.
Yeah,
I do wonder moving forward in the future, what if they are going to tell Navy, hey, can you move this Navy Army game because obviously this could happen again. I mean,
where do you move it? Where do you move it? Because it used to be when they were both independents. It used to be the same weekend as the conference championships, but Navy's in a conference now, so you can't have it that weekend.
I don't know.
Do you move it to rivalry week and you lose the huge TV audience that you have? What about being stuck between a rock and a hard place?
How about this one? Navy Army on Thanksgiving night.
See, the problem with that is all the cadets and all the midshipmen. They go home for Thanksgiving. And part of the draw of that game, part of the atmosphere of that game is having them all march into the stadium.
Sure. No, you're right.
They're all going crazy the whole game.
Right.
Every little thing that happens, and that would really put a damper on the atmosphere of that game. It really would. I think they should just say, look, we're just not going to care about what happens in the Army-Navy game. Navy, you're going here. Army, you're going there, and we'll just pretend that the season ended the week before.
Well, right, and I agree with you. I just worry about that's common sense and logic. I don't know if that's going to be used in this.
Common sense and logic. Why would they ever turn upon that when
honestly,
bowl games?
My thing is anybody really going to be bothered if Navy is in this bowl game this year? Like if Navy goes to the Cotton Bowl, is anybody really going to throw up their arms and say no? I mean, come on, get out of here. I hope you're right. I hope that they do what you say and not be stupid and wait till this Army game.
Of course, Navy can make it easy on everybody and win both games.
Sure, they could, and they might. But I'm just saying, I don't think they need to wait an extra 7 days. Not this year, anyway. Not this year, because I don't think it's not like there's a strong contender. Like, oh wait, if Navy loses, then so and so can go.
Right.
It's not that case this year. Like if Boise State, for example, let's say Navy was 19 and Boise was 20. And Boise won the Mountain West, then I understand you might want to wait. But this year, there isn't that case. There's not a strong contender this year. I'm sorry. With all due respect to Wyoming and whoever the hell has played in the Mountain West title game.
Right.
So I agree with you. I would just give it to Navy and say, you know what, let's just move on. And congrats. And I think, to be honest, if I was in Arlington in the Cotton Bowl, Who would you and if you're ESPN, if you had the choice, Navy or Western Michigan in that game, who do you rather see?
Oh, give me Navy.
Yeah. So that's what we would do.
Yeah. All right. Let's take a quick breather. When we get back, we'll talk about the Oregon head coaching job opening up. Could Scott Frost? Yeah, you knew we were going to talk about that. Could Scott Frost be in the mix for the Oregon head coach job? Plus, we'll dash upon men's and women's hoops. Stick around. The Black and Gold Banneret Podcast is back after this.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Fegley.
This is Trey Strelka with the UCF Nightline Podcast, the original, the #1 rated UCF sports podcast.
You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. On Twitter, it's UCF_Nightline and at www.ucfnightlinepodcast.com.
Be sure to subscribe to us as well on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube.
And when you get sick of listening to these guys, make sure you look us up.
Don't forget, that's the UCF Nightline Podcast. Go Knights!
Charge on.
Now, back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
All right, welcome back. Jeff, Sharon, Eric Lopez, Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Let's talk a little coaching carousel, shall we, Eric?
Oh, boy.
Oh, God. Here we go. Everyone's going to start panicking now. So, we're recording this Wednesday night, November the 30th. Yesterday, Tuesday, Mark Helfrich got fired at the University of Oregon. Why is that significant? Well, in case you've been living under a rock for the past several years, Scott Frost was Mark Helfrich's offensive coordinator up until when he left for UCF. And naturally, the rumor mill starts. Will Scott Frost, who is quite cozy with Phil Knight, the founder of Nike and big-time Oregon booster, would Scott Frost be tabbed to replace his former boss, Mark Helfrich at the University of Oregon? Interesting news that came down today. Well, I don't call this news. It's just a tweet, but it's from Bruce Feldman, who knows stuff. He says that USF's Willie Taggart is emerging as a strong candidate. This is Feldman on Twitter. Emerging as a strong candidate for the Oregon head coach vacancy, a source told Fox Sports. USF obviously coming off of a 10-2 regular season. But your boy Chris Torello, Eric Lopez, said for Spectrum Sports, said he's been told by a friend out in Oregon that Willie Taggart is not the favorite. Doesn't mean they don't like him or won't hire him, but worth saying. One other report from Jeff Odom of ESPN says Oregon has, quote, reached out, end quote, to Willie Taggart about its head coaching vacancy. Taggart does have prior West Coast ties with Stanford. So, all that stuff about Willie Taggart floating out there in the ether, what does that mean for Scott Frost? Let me ask you this, Eric. What is the percentage chance that Scott Frost leaves UCF after one season to become the new head coach of the Oregon Ducks?
10%. I think it's 10%. First of all,
I was going to say 5%, maybe as low as 2%.
And you're right. I think you might be. Obviously, I might be more generous about it. Let's get this clear about this coaching stuff. A lot of this stuff is coming from agents.
Yep.
All right. Just like we went through this last week with Tom Herman. Remember the Thanksgiving night? Oh, hey, Tom Herman's close to a deal with LSU. You know where that came from? Came in from Tom Herman's agent,
who did a great job for his client, who by forcing that through, and that sort of forced Texas's hand to get Charlie Strong out of the way so that he could extract more money from Texas. Herman wanted to go to Texas the entire time.
More money and more say in certain things as far as running this program at Texas, as far as equipment,
as far as getting the boosters to sit down and shut up.
Exactly. Pretty much, yes. So keep that in mind. Like, my favorite one about this Oregon one is how Jim McElwain's name just pops in out of nowhere. Oh, he's from Montana. He might be. No, he's not. You know what that is? That's his agent, who's the same agent as Jimbo Fisher, by the way.
Right.
Trying to float his name out there because he just won a second Eastern Division. He has a new boss at Florida. It's time to pay up a pony a little bit. That's what this game is about. Just like Jimbo to LSU was all, 6 years, reportedly, Jimbo's he interested in LSU? No, it's just leverage. You always use this stuff. So keep that in mind when you see all this stuff being thrown out there. Now, to the Scott Frost thing, it's very predictable that his name is getting mentioned. He was there at Oregon, and the easiest thing to do for us media people is, hey, so-and-so was there, just there.
Just speculate wildly.
So let's just throw his name in there, okay? And you know what? If I'm Scott Frost, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Keep floating my name out there. And I laugh, and I won't mention who they are, but they know who they are. For these people that are calling for Scott Frost to come out and say, oh, you're not interested in Oregon right now, do this. Because are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? Get out of here.
Right. Let's think clearly for a second. And the reason, and the other thing is, just like what you said, Scott Frost's buyout is not very large. I think it's $850,000. No. And it's not it's pocket change for someone like Phil Knight to pony up that dough. So,
sure.
But what Scott Frost could do is go back to Danny White and say, hey,
right.
My name got tossed out there a couple times.
Sure,
I did just get this team to 500 a year after going 0-12. So, what do you say we talk a little business? It's a big giant game, man. That's what it is. Let's think clearly about it.
And it works in every form of life. Where, first of all, there are a couple things. Yes, that plus you can't address every rumor that gets thrown out there. Otherwise, you'd be talking about rumors for every day of your life. So
because then someone asks him about Nebraska, and then it gets.
They'll ask him about every job. Yeah, hey, that Bethune-Cookman job's open. Somebody throw your name. You're interested? No? Okay. I mean, why are we just – Rollins might start a football program. You're interested in that job too?
UNF, they might be starting.
Apopka. Coach Darlington High School just left. Somebody's throwing your name out there because, you live nearby there, whatever. I mean, they'll throw crap out there. So he shouldn't say anything, and I wouldn't say anything because I have leverage. And I don't have any problems, by the way, because this is the other thing that's really ticking me off, is all these media people at the top giving people like Tom Herman a hard time because, God forbid, they use their leverage to their potential to get the best deal for them. And if that means leaving the school, then so be it. The same media people that, what about the poor kids that the coaches leave behind? They'll be fine, all right? Nobody feels sorry when the coaches get fired at the end of the day. Who's feeling sorry for the kids at that point? So spare me on that. These guys have a right to make a deal with whatever. And if I'm Scott Frost and I see my name's being floated for all these jobs, cool. Keep flowing them out there, buddy, because I don't have to do a darn thing because people around me are going to do it for me. So I don't have a problem with it. I think it's a compliment. I would take it as a compliment if you're a UCF fan and people are talking about your coach. And I don't buy into, this hurts recruiting. First of all, they're always going to use, they're going to use recruiting against you anyway. So even if you're not going anywhere, coaches are going to tell them, hey, Scott Frost ain't going to be there in the long run. Just like when Bobby Bowden was there at Florida State, he's not going to be here much longer. That's how recruiting works. So that doesn't really make a big factor of anything. I think it uses to an advantage because Scott Frost says, everybody's talking about me going to all these places, but I'm not going here and I'm not going there. You know why? Because this is a great place and you should come here too. So it works both ways. But for people to overreact to every time that this coach is going to be floated out there, give me a break.
Yeah, I think I had this. I'll have to go back and look at the number, but I had seen that over the last 5 years, it was something like 2/3 of FBS schools had senior classes of players who were playing for at least their second head coach. Yeah. And these guys have every right to run to like you said, maximize their leverage. And because remember, these jobs are hard to come by, man, and they don't last very long. There's a quick hook in college football these days.
Well, let me give you right. I mean, we just saw that with Mark Helfrich. It was in the national title game 2 years ago. I'll go back to Tom Herman's example. Let's say Tom Herman decides to stay in Houston and passes on Texas, and everybody's like, "Oh, wow, he's great, loyal." And then he goes 5-7 the next 2 years. You think Houston stays with him loyal?
Right.
3 years? No. So there's, it is what it is.
Look at the guy that they had after what's his name from Texas A&M left. After Kevin Sumlin left. 4 years.
Right.
I forget the guy's name. 4 years.
Tony Levine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Tony Levine. Yeah.
Right. So it happens all the time. So I don't think Scott Frost. And what's funny about the Oregon situation, if you actually read up on some people believe that the fans and the AD and stuff, that they might want to just go away from the whole Chip Kelly tree, period. That they might just want to go away from it. That some believe that that's the reason why they're in where they're in right now. So sometimes, and this, and it happens all walk of life in sports. If they fire one coach because he was too nice of a guy, what are they going to do? It's going to go after a hard ass, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So if Oregon believes that this whole thing with the Chip Kelly and the spread offense stuff has run its course, then they might just go in a different direction, and they might go for a Willie Taggart, who runs a pro set, who was at Stanford with Jim Harbaugh, and change things up. Or they might go for a PJ Fleck. They might just go in a completely different direction. Scott Frost was just there. And it's not like, that all of a sudden, I think Scott Frost was actually people got to give him credit. I think he saw what was going on at Oregon, and he got out of there.
He bailed out, yeah.
I think he knew what was going on there as far as, he was just an offensive coordinator, but he knew what was going on there. They were in decline when he was in his last year.
Yeah.
So I think he's a pretty smart guy. And I generally do think that he feels that he can do some things here in Florida, in the state of Florida, coach up UCF. And look, and I said this when he got here, if he wins, he's going to have a bunch of opportunities. It's not like opportunities are going to close on him this year if he doesn't go leave this year or next year. If you're good, people are always going to ask for you. So,
and the other thing is, too, the better he does at UCF, the more attractive the UCF job becomes for whoever the next guy is.
Exactly, right. And I think there's some questions, too, how good that Oregon job is. Yes, Phil Knight is in there, and he'll spend a lot of money for the coaches and the uniforms. But there is this thing called Eugene, Oregon, that is not the easiest place for recruits to get there. And you wonder if the bar is so high that Chip Kelly and even Mark Bellotti before that set that, you look at the Pac-12 with the way it is, that may not be as easy of a place to win as you people might think. So Who knows? I'm not suggesting that it's a bad job. I'm just saying it's not. I mean, like I said, I would be surprised if he left. I don't even think he's on the top of the list, and it's not a disrespect to him. I just think Oregon's might be going for a different direction. And, if what Bruce Feldman's saying is that Willie Taggart could be a possible target, that wouldn't surprise me. And here's the thing. Willie Taggart's actually, ironically, it's a good comparison. Willie Taggart was in that Stanford staff with Jim Harbaugh. He then left to go to Western Kentucky, which was his alma mater. Won there. Then he got the USF job. He knows from the area in that Tampa area. He's won there. Now he's gone 10-2. USF fans don't want to hear this. He's probably done most of what he can do there. And remember this. Let's talk about loyalty. A year ago at this time, a lot of those, well, I don't know how many fans they have. There's not many. Just look at the stats. And you saw that on TV. The fans, and some even suggested the athletic director over there wanted him out of there last year. Remember when they were losing to Maryland? Yeah. And he's done. He's done. And
how quickly that turned around.
And he turned that team around and got him to a bowl game last year. And remember, he had to throw himself in the rumor for the South Carolina job and the Miami job and all this stuff just to get a new extension. Just to get an extension. So to me, I don't think he's there for the long run. And I think he's going to say, you know what, you guys didn't have my back when it was really gotten hot. I'm just going to go ahead and go to the next big job, which could be Oregon or wherever. So that's just the way it goes there. So I would not be surprised if Willie left. And I kind of predicted that back in August that he would leave. I thought it would be for an ACC job, like if a Georgia Tech opened up or something like that. And maybe it still could happen. Who knows? But that's how this game works. And I know I'm sounding like a big Taggart fan. Trust me, I'm not. I'm very agitated with him. I thought it was BS what he did at the end of the UCF game, running up the score there. And I'm not big. I'm not the guy that says, "Oh, sportsmanship and this," and I look, if the guy scores, you got to stop him. I get all that. My issue, and we didn't address this earlier, so I'll address it now. My issue with the last touchdown was the way it was done, which was you're going no huddle. You're going no huddle.
Right.
The play clock wasn't a factor, And I think it was kind of like, well, you can just take a knee and walk off and, but you went no huddle. That was BS. That was beneath them. He's better than that. It was very disappointing. And that's why UCF people have a right to be agitated with that.
I look at that and I'm like, all right, okay, that's how you want to play it. We'll see you again, and we'll see you again in 12 months and see what happens with your next head coach, whoever that might be.
Right, possibly new coach. But so back to Scott Frost. I think Scott's comfortable. He just got started here, and I think Scott Frost wants to see what he can do here with the Florida talent with his system before saying goodbye. Don't you agree with that?
I agree. I think that one of the big experiment here is, does the Oregon system travel to the Southeast? It's one thing to run it with athletes in the Pacific Northwest, and a lot of guys that Oregon got was actually from California, if you go and you look.
That's really the
at
truth,
their roster. But does it work in the Southeast where it is perceived that the speed is better? All right. Does it work down here? I will say this, and I finally found the place where I wrote this. 68% of schools in the FBS this year had senior classes that were taking the field with at least their second head coach. 87 of 128 programs. So It is a war of attrition out there in terms of coaching. But in terms of Scott Frost, I would not blame him one bit for sniffing around, just seeing what the lay of the land is, and even in places other than Oregon. I wouldn't blame him one bit. If I was in his shoes, I would do the same exact thing. But
here's the thing.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and look, if somehow I'm wrong, and if he ends up going to Oregon or whatever, I don't have a problem with it either.
Right.
Pick
up
Phil
the
Knight
pieces and go get the next guy.
That's how it works. Same thing with Houston. I've had this argument with the Houston people. Get over it. Like, does it really matter when Tom Herman told you when he was leaving for Texas or not? Who cares? Right. Like, are you that naive to believe that he wasn't looking at the Texas job? Like, get out of here. Come on.
He would have been stupid not to.
Exactly.
And that's the other thing. And that's the other thing with Frost. I think that 6-6. Okay. I really think that sort of the Mendoza line for him is, can I get this team back to the American Athletic Conference Championship? Can I win a division?
Oh yeah, right.
That's where you start getting nervous, because I think that a lot of the ADs that are out there in the Power Five look at that and be like, okay, first year pretty good, but I got a very small sample size here. Let me see what you do developing this team in the next year. How do you develop these freshmen that you currently have? How do you do with one full year of recruiting now, right? Because remember, he didn't have a full year of recruiting. Now he's had a full year of recruiting. What do those kids do? And if UCF does compete for an American Conference Championship in 2017, which I would not be surprised to see them do, quite frankly, especially how the schedule lines up, then I think we can start to get nervous. But then you also got to think about, is there anyone on the staff who you can promote? And then is there anyone out there who might be an interesting person to go after?
Well, we're getting way, yeah.
I know we're getting way ahead of that. And I'm not, don't think about that right now. But I don't think that.
But you bring up a good point.
Yeah.
You bring up a good point here. Scott Frost's value goes up more the more he wins. So why leave at 6-6? And a pretty good job. It's not like you're in the middle of nowhere and you just went 6-6. There's certain jobs where, yes, like I've always argued, like James Franklin, smart. Left Vanderbilt going 7-5 because that's as good as it gets at Vanderbilt.
Right.
And he cashed that into a Penn State job. I mean, if I'm Mark Stoops at Kentucky, I get the heck out of there. Now that you got Kentucky finally to a bowl game, get the heck out of there.
That's as good as it gets at Kentucky.
Right. But that's not the case at UCF. So I don't think the national perspective on Scott Frost is, we got to get this guy right now because he went 6-6 this year. I think they want to wait and see what else he can do.
Yeah, they want to see 10-2.
And if he does that, then, he's proven. That's why Tom Herman got the Texas job, is because in his 2 years, he got him into a conference title. He beat Florida State in the Peach Bowl. He beat Oklahoma, and he's beaten Louisville. And he was a grad assistant at Texas under Mac Brown. So it was all the dominoes all fit there. What I'm fascinated about Scott Frost, I think everybody just assumes Nebraska's the job he wants. But in listening to him talk about it, I feel like he's a little, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, because when the Nebraska job opened, people have brought that up about him in Nebraska, and he's like, well, they didn't call me when that job was available. And I feel he felt slighted by that. And why not? I'd be too if I was competitive.
Well,
and he's a very competitive guy. So I'm just wondering if down the road, if the Nebraska job opens, maybe he's like, you know what, we'll see about that. And maybe I'm not saying he wouldn't take it, but I'm saying I don't know if it's an automatic. I could see him being interested in other jobs, maybe in the Midwest even, more than West Coast if he were to leave UCF in a power conference, obviously.
All I know is that I'm going to be rooting for Nebraska to do really well every year because the more they do that, the longer Mike Riley's going to stay. So,
All right.
so we'll file that one away. We'll see what Oregon does, and if something strange happens, then we'll have our first emergency podcast. Eric, what do you think?
Deal.
Okay.
Worth it. And then I'll have like a lot of crow in my mouth for like saying, no shot in Oregon.
Oh yeah, we'll be framing this one and putting it up in the hallway. Let's talk. All right, so let's talk hoops real quick. I wanted to kick off with women's basketball real quick. They got 2 wins in the Thanksgiving Classic over the weekend. Saturday over Ryder, beat them by 19, and then an 18-point victory over Austin Peay. Wow, Coach Abe, they are throttling people. They have of their 6 wins, only 2 of them. One of them has been by single digits, and that was on the road at Butler. They did lose to Virginia Tech at home, which was a game that you were at, Eric, but that was a really close game that came down to the final shot. They've got Buffalo at Buffalo on December the 1st. That's Thursday. And then home for Bethune-Cookman on Sunday. So that should be a lot of fun. Old rivals Bethune-Cookman coming to town, and then Gardner-Webb. And then they have basically almost an entire week off before they get Gardner-Webb on December the 10th. So Coach Abe's team off to a very, very good start at 6-1, and they've won 3 in a row.
Playing well defensively. Teams having a hard time scoring against them.
They held Ryder to 30 points. And then they held Austin Peay to 43. That's impressive.
I feel like their defense is ahead of the offense right now. I still think they're trying to find themselves offensively and still learning each other, so I think that makes sense.
Yep.
They're winning games, and I think that's a positive step. And try to build some confidence and build some belief before you head into conference play, I think is the key for them, and so far so good.
Men's basketball coming off of a victory that wrapped up a few moments before we started recording, defeating Stetson, old A-Sun rivalry, 81-45. This is after they knocked off Seattle by 16 points on Saturday as well at the arena. That was coming off of the Charleston tournament. Really impressive performance tonight against Stetson. Some of the highlights for UCF. B.J. Taylor, 7 of 11, 18 points, led the team. Taco Fall, again, 4 for 4 from the field, 12 points, 9 rebounds. 6 and 11 boards for A.J. Davis, who's back. And let's see. Matt Williams had 16 points in 4 of 9 from beyond the arc. So, Eric, this team, right now, the Knights under Johnny Dawkins, 5-1 overall, winners of 2 in a row. They're at UMass on Saturday, and then they have a week off before coming back home from Maryland Eastern Shore, which, my God, Maryland Eastern Shore. But impressive win over Stetson and Corey Williams' team, where they held the Hatters, to 15 of 68 from the field, 22%. Meanwhile, the Knights shot 46% as a team, 27 out of 58. This is an impressive performance, man. And they were winning, and they won the game going away too later on tonight. Your thoughts on what's going right now? I'm a little worried, right now because, and I'll hand it off to you on this. Mike O'Donnell, when he talked to us during our basketball preview show, which you can download on via SoundCloud, iTunes, and Google Play, talked about how the biggest problem with this team was the depth. And right now, we're early on in the season. Everything's looking real good. Starting 5 looks solid. The top 7 in the rotation look pretty good. What happens when the attrition kicks in, when you get to conference play? That's what I'm a little worried about. We're stacking up the wins right now, and that's good. You beat Stetson by 35 points here in this game, or 36 points. But it's only going to go so well for so long. What happens when this team hits some adversity?
Well,
maybe I'm just being negative, Nancy. I don't know.
Yeah, you're definitely being negative. Come on, man. We just destroyed Stetson. You realize I was at the Stetson game last year in DeLand, and that was a nail-biter. I mean, that was a game that came down to the wire. They couldn't stop Stetson. So what a difference a year makes. And I say that, with respect to Donnie Jones, who actually I got a chance, believe it or not, I'll give it exclusive. actually had a chance to talk to Donnie Jones this weekend. He is scouting for the LA Clippers in the NBA.
For Doc Rivers.
Correct. So Donnie's actually goes to some Magic games to scout future opponents and things like that. And so he was at the Milwaukee Bucks Orlando Magic game on Sunday, and I actually ran into him, and we spoke for a few minutes, doing very well. He's always been very good guy. Can
I echo that for a second?
Yeah.
I will always have the highest respect for Donnie Jones because he really is a true gentleman. And I always have the highest respect for him. That was the one part about him leaving that I was kind of sad about.
Yeah, I mean, it just didn't work out here. Some things happened. I'm not going to dwell on it. But some fans have been negative on him, and I don't think it's been fair. He's a good guy. I think he's going to get back into coaching in the next year or two. I think he's eager to be. But that being said, I've been impressed with Coach Dawkins in that. I mean, this team is playing with a confidence. They're playing discipline. They're playing with an urgency I don't think that was there at times last year.
They're playing to their strengths on the floor, too. That's the other thing, too.
Yes, and you could say, yes, we have issues from a depth standpoint. That's true. But not to single out any specific people. I also think that some of the subtractions from the roster was not necessarily a bad thing. I think that times in the one of the things that I think kind of bit Donnie at the end in the last couple of years, I think there was, and George O'Leary, this, having worked there, would always use that me guy. He's a me guy. We don't need any of those me guys.
Right.
He always. And I think there was some
guys.
of that.
I don't want.
Right. Thank you. I knew you would. I knew you would have the thing down pat better than I can being around them.
I need me guys. I don't need any me guys around here. We have we guys around here.
Yes, and I think we had some of that with the basketball program the last couple of years, and I don't see that right now. And I think that's a positive, obviously. And let's be honest. I mean, who knows if Donnie Jones is still coaching this team if B.J. Taylor was healthy last year? I mean, we kind of forget that, right?
Fair point.
It's funny. I mean, he didn't have his point guard last year. In fairness, and I think we've seen, and Michael Donald said this on the podcast where you talked about. I mean, I think B.J. Taylor could end up, by the time his career is done at UCF, if he stays healthy and progresses, he's going to be in the conversation among the best UCF players ever, and certainly in the point guard position. When I think the point guard position at UCF, certainly Mike's in that conversation. A guy that I love a lot that you covered, Ray Abelar, which needs to be brought up more often, was phenomenal.
And the guy who came after him, Gary Johnson, too. We can't forget about him either.
Yeah, yes, tremendous. And obviously AJ Rumsa afterwards, a little bit after that, did a very good job as well at the point guard position. But I think this kid has all the tools, and I think you're seeing that, and he's making these other guys better. It's great to get Davis back. I think that's huge with his versatility. Taco's playing great. Matt Williams has been phenomenal.
He's just shooting the lights out right now, Matt Williams. And I'm so happy to see that for him, too.
A kid that's been hurt most of his UCF career, So it's not like Donnie couldn't get guys. It just didn't work out for a variety of reasons. But I think Dawkins has done a phenomenal job. I'm excited. I enjoy watching this team. I know it's just Stetson, but, man, I felt good. There was a nice domination. Fascinating to see what they do up in UMass. Not an easy place to play.
Nope.
Be curious to see how they handle a true road game. This is really – I mean, granted, they did play at College of Charleston on the road in the tournament, so if you want to say that's their first road game, fair. But UMass will be tough. I'm very interested to see how they react to the environment they're playing. I guess your second true road game, if you count the Charleston game. And I'm curious to see how they come out with it. And look, you know what? Try to rack up those wins before the conference and have some confidence and some mojo going into conference play, and then you never know what could happen. So I'm excited. And I know somebody suggested this to me, Jeff, to bring it up to you. We should do a podcast live from the arena after a game, one of these during the season.
Yeah,
how about that, huh?
Well,
I don't know. I mean, you're more of the technical guy. I don't know.
Make
You
some phone calls. We'll have to do that. See who will have us around. So
let's see what we can do with that. Maybe that's something we could do towards the new year from sporting events, live events, some special podcasts from there. So, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see this team. I'm looking forward to seeing this team more now that football is kind of going more on the back burner and having an opportunity to go to more games. and try to pull that off. I know I'm going to the Miami of Ohio game coming up on the 18th, I believe, on December. Maybe I haven't looked at the schedule in front of me, but I'm trying to obviously juggle some things. But it's exciting, and I'm just pleased to see this team play basketball. And I think if nothing else, there's optimism to see. Hey, let's see what happens with this year, and let's just see what these guys can do.
Couple notes to wrap up on men's basketball. They have 6 games left before conference play. Remember what Mike told us in the preview show? Get to double-digit wins before conference play, and things might start to look really interesting. Well, you got at UMass, home for Maryland Eastern Shore, home for Penn, at GW, home for Miami, Ohio, and then home for Bethune-Cookman. I think that GW game on December 15th might be the one that determines whether or not we hit 10 wins before conference play starts. And a couple notes on individual numbers, and I just wanted to throw these out because some of these are amazing. Matt Williams right now, talk about shooting the lights out. He's shooting 41% from beyond the arc, 22 of 54. But that pales in comparison to what Taco Fall is doing right now. He's 40 of 50 from the floor, 80%. 80%. That's got to be, in the words of Kenny Mayne, that's like a record or something. So,
and he looks smooth on the court too, right?
Really
what a difference
he was really smooth today, I thought. Yeah, and the thing that I was most impressed with, I know I said this before, his footwork within 10 feet of the basket. His footwork is night and day this year. And when you're a big man, that's what it's all about. It's how you position your body, and your body follows where your feet go. And he has just been fantastic down low. He's really putting on a clinic down low. So the Knights at 5-1. I know we run really long on this one, but that's okay. We're going to wrap up here by talking about. I know we talked a little bit about what we're looking forward to in the coming week, but I did want to get this stuff in there about the American Athletic Conference Football Awards. Big congrats to Shaquem Griffin, Defensive Player of the Year in the American Athletic Conference. Quentin Flowers of USF won Offensive Player of the Year. But wow, what a job by Shaquem Griffin. Third UCF player to win a major football honor from the American, following Blake Bortles and Jacoby Glenn, who was the 2014 Defensive Player of the Year. 11 sacks, 19 tackles for loss, 85 total tackles, and he's literally everywhere. Coach of the Year, by the way, Ken Niumatalolo at Navy. So
I believe I had that one.
Yeah. And then also some other awards that were passed out, some of the all-conference teams. I mentioned Shaquem, first team all-AAC. He was the only UCF player on the first team, which surprised by that. Only one UCF player, first team all-conference?
I don't know.
It's hard. Well, here's who's on the second team. Jemias Pittman, defensive lineman. Shaquille Griffin. Mm-hmm. And then, let's see, honorable mention, Drico Johnson, senior from Orlando on there. So,
I don't really have a big gripe there. I mean, because
I'm glad the defensive guys got the love, though, because they've all been great this year.
Yeah, I think exactly. That's would be how I would leave it like that. Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I'm still related to the fact that Shaquem is a junior, so he's still got one more year with him. 6'1", 213 out of St. Pete. So it'll be nice having him back on the defense again next year for his senior year, although his brother is a senior, so that's kind of a bummer. And one more bit of news to pass along. Volleyball got some awards as well, Eric Lopez.
How about that, huh? Kia Bright, first team all-conference. Jayla Harvey, first team all-conference.
Well-deserved both of them. Well-deserved both. I can't get over how, even though they didn't make the even though they didn't get to the NCAA tournament. Jordan Thompson, by the way, your girl from Cincinnati, won Player of the Year. But and Molly Alvey of Cincinnati, who really has done a great job with the Bearcats, was the coach of the year. But Jayla Hervey and Kia Bright, both outside hitters, first team all-conference. Kia, by the way, unanimous selection. And well-deserved on her part because she was such a great two-way player. And Jayla, gosh, it feels like we hardly knew her. She's already a senior. She goes out first team all-conference. She was the straw that stirred the drink this year for the Knights. And congrats to
what's her legacy? What's her legacy? You've covered this program a long time, going even back to Meg Collado and stuff. Give me your kind of quick legacy moment here for Jayla.
I would say Jayla was the most talented outside hitter that we've had probably since we had Leire Sante Asante back in the early 2000s. Due respect to a lot of really good players who we had over the time. I mean, obviously Aaron Campbell, who did such a great job for UCF for such a long time. But I mean, Jayla has been the total package, and it's a shame we didn't have her for all 4 years. She transferred over from Middle Tennessee, and but boy, has she been something, and we're going to miss her. But Kia Bright gets to come back next year for one more year. And pick up where she left off. So Jayla really became a really great all-around player, and I'm so glad that she gets to go out first team all-conference because she deserves it.
I thought Pingle should have gotten consideration.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised at that, too, because she's been very good as a defensive specialist. I'm looking up and down the Morgan Hayes of SMU was a top defensive specialist on the first team all-conference. Everybody else was a right side or outside hitter. One middle blocker, Janelle Giordano of SMU as well, and then one setter was Jade Tingelhoff of Cincinnati. But I'm surprised only one defensive specialist on first team all conference. So, and let's see, Kaylee McHugh of Tulane and Brooke Berryhill of Tulsa were the liberos on the second team. Interestingly enough, by the way, Eric Lopez, Kaylee McHugh is, I believe, the granddaughter of Aggie McHugh, who played on the 1978 UCF volleyball team that won the national title. And I think she was a defensive specialist as well, so it runs in the family.
Wow. By the way, congrats to the American Conference 2-bid league.
Yeah.
Very
should have
happy.
been 3.
Yeah, Temple got left out. That was unfortunate. They were on the cusp. I didn't see the selection show, but I know that Temple was among the last teams out. I think UCF was among the last teams out too, from what I read or something. Cincinnati got in. Cincinnati's actually playing in Gainesville, and then obviously SMU winning the regular season. They're playing up in Austin. They're playing A&M in the opening round. But 2 bids. It's a big step for the American Conference. From reading, it was the most improved conference in volleyball. It finished, I think, 5th or 6th in the RPI. 2-bid league, could have had 3, as you mentioned, and I think that's exciting moving forward from a conference standpoint. And I know, Jeff, from a UCF standpoint, and maybe we'll get into this more as we get closer to the holidays and kind of recap the year. I thought it was a positive year. They took some positive steps, winning 23 games, and you think about it, a couple of swings here and there of a couple of matches, and they might be playing this weekend. And you do get Kia Bright back. And I know there's a lot of young talent that you like a lot that grew up a little bit this year that will even have a bigger role next year. And for this team to take that step and get back to the tournament, right?
Well, UCF finished 61st in the RPI. And to give you an idea on that, when Temple got left out of the tournament, they were 47th in the RPI. So that's a tough pill to swallow for the Owls. Yes, there is a lot of really good young talent, in particular Jeannie Wesley in the middle, and really liked what I saw from Allie Sable on the outside on that right side this year. And you're going to see a really good 1-2 punch next year with Allie on the right and Kia on the left. Kia coming off that injury that she suffered last year. It takes you a good calendar year to fully recover from the injury that she had. And so I expect her to be back at 110%. Next year as well, and then we know how good of a recruiter Todd is. So he's got some talent on the bench that we're able to do some work on the scout team this year. That should be very good coming up in the next few years, and then we'll see how the recruiting season goes. So I think UCF volleyball really did exceed expectations this year, and like you said, Eric, a couple swings here or there, and they could have even gotten into the tournament. Which would I thought have been a real bonus, I think, this year if UCF was able to do it. Of course, Todd will say, "Well, that's what I expect to do every year." So, what a great season for UCF volleyball, and really looking forward to what they do in the spring and going forward into 2017. It should be a fun 2017 for UCF volleyball with some high expectations, hopefully. So So as we wrap up here, what are you looking forward to now, Eric?
Real simple. Let's just find out. Where's UCF's next football game going to be at, right? Real simple. You want to let's go on a record. Let's go on record.
Announcement.
Let's go on record. What do you think? Sunday night, UCF will be playing. I'm assuming we'll know. Hopefully, they don't mess this up. What do you think? Where are they going? What's your gut? What do you think they're going?
Oh boy, I am 51% to 49% in favor of the Cure Bowl.
You think they end up? You think that they find a way to make it work and go to the Cure Bowl?
Yeah, I think so. I think that they they'll play the game at home, not at home, but at the Citrus Bowl, in their old home, and I think it'll be. And then the fun part will be let's see if UCF fans can sell out that game. That's going to be the next question.
I will just take the opposite view just to make this interesting. I will say they end up in Miami Beach because the issue is USF, for example, played there last year, lost to Western Kentucky. Memphis played the year before that. So I don't see either of those teams going there. So when you look at your options, I think it's either Temple, UCF, or Tulsa. And I don't think that ESPN and the conference wants to take Tulsa to Orlando. I think it's and then maybe the same issue with Temple. I think they rather have UCF go there and put Tulsa maybe here in Orlando instead. Which is an easier flight. Hopefully I'm wrong. I'm with you. I'm more rooting for the Cure Bowl, and I hope that works out. But either way, here's the best news. Regardless, we have another football game to watch. That's the best thing. We didn't have that luxury last year.
And a chance to finish above 500.
Exactly.
So, all right, Eric, thanks again. And where can people reach out to you?
Eric Lopez Elo on Twitter. That's where you want to follow me on Twitter there. And check out Tuck and O'Neill weekdays, 3 to 7. I'll be co-hosting with Mike Tuck on this Friday, depending when you're listening. We're big Tuck and O'Neill. We're going to be previewing the conference championships. And then obviously we'll be previewing the bowl games next week as well. So you're going to do that. And I'll have a breakdown of the UCF bowl game as well on the Football Insider Show Monday night from Harry Buffalo in downtown Orlando, 6 to 7. So look for that among other goodies. But Eric Lopez Elo is the place where you can find out everything that I am doing with radio and then the podcast and broadcasting and my opinion.
And on the Banneret and writing stuff and softball and the whole 9 yards.
That's right.
Good stuff.
That's right, baby.
And you can hit me up at Jeff_Sharon. Send your hate mail that way. Also, UCF_Banneret is the Black and Gold Banneret on Twitter. Don't forget, you can look us up on Facebook as well. Just search Black and Gold Banneret. Sign up for our newsletter, I call it a newsletter, but you can get updates right to your inbox. Anytime we put in something new, it goes right to your email inbox if you go to blackandgoldbanneret.com. You can also subscribe to this podcast, if you don't already, on iTunes, Google Play, and SoundCloud as well. Thanks again, Eric. Catch you later, brother.
Always a pleasure, Jeffrey.
And thank you, UCF fans, for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We'll catch you next week.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.